The Valorith homeworld hung in space like a dark jewel, its surface covered in structures that had stood for 10,000 years. Admiral Daho Shin looked at it through the bridge viewport of the Resolution and felt nothing but cold determination. Enemy fleet detected. Commander Una Park reported 240 vessels in defensive formation around the planet. Shin studied the Peloche tactical display. The Corvith intelligence had been accurate. The Valorith defenses here were minimal compared to the forces they sent to terrorize younger species. They had never needed strong home defenses. No one had ever been foolish enough to attack them until now. All ships activate weapon modifications, Shin ordered. Today we show them what humans are capable of. The Battle of Valorith Prime began with a wall of fire. Human ships unleashed their modified weapons for the first time. The chaotic energy pulses, tearing through ancient shields that had never been breached. Veloth vessels that had dominated the galaxy for millennia exploded under the assault. The enemy fleet reeled in confusion. Their shields were failing, and they did not understand why. They had faced countless civilizations, and always their technology had proven superior. Now human weapons were cutting through their defenses like they were made of paper. Press the attack, Shin commanded. Give them no time to recover. Commander Park led a strike force directly at the Valorith command ships, her vessel weaving through enemy fire with precision that the rigid Valorith pilots could not match. She had studied Dr. Chai's tactical analyses, and she knew exactly how the enemy would respond to every move. Target their flagship's engine section. She ordered her gunners. 3 burst pattern now. Modified weapons struck true, and a massive Valorith flagship shuddered as explosions rippled across its stern. They are trying to retreat, her sensor officer reported. Do not let them, Park replied. All units pursue and destroy on the surface of the Valorith homeworld. The ruling council watched the battle with growing disbelief. High Sovereign Veloth Prime, the ancient leader who had ordered the destruction of 17 civilizations, stood before the view screens in silent shock. How is this possible? Demanded one of the council members. They are primitives. They should have been corrected months ago. They did not accept correction, another replied. They came here instead. Impossible, the first council member insisted. No species as ever. He was cut off as the building shook. Human missiles were now striking the planet itself, targeting military installations and defensive platforms. Dispatch the reserve fleet. The High Sovereign finally spoke, his ancient voice carrying absolute authority. Destroy these vermin. 100 additional Valorith warships rose from the surface to join the battle, but even this was not enough. Admiral Shin had anticipated reinforcements. Second wave engage, he ordered. Human ships that had been holding back now surged forward, their fresh weapons and eager crews crashing into the Valorith reserves. The battle became a swirling chaos of fire and metal. Human vessels died by the dozens, but for every ship they lost, they took 3. Valorith with the Minji Quan stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Remembrance, watching the battle unfold around Hirsch. She had requested assignment to the Marine Assault Team, and now she waited with 1,000 other soldiers for the order to deploy. Landing zones are clear, the ship's captain announced. All Marine units prepare for surface assault. Minji checked her weapon one final time. She had never been a soldier. 6 months ago, she had been a colony administrator who spent her days reviewing farming reports, but that was before the Valorith burned her world. That was before she watched millions die. Now she was something else. All units deploy, the captain ordered. The assault shuttles launched from the carrier, diving through the chaos of the space battle toward the alien world. Belawanti aircraft. Fire rose to meet them, and shuttles exploded all around. Minji's craft, but enough got through her shuttle crashed hard on the surface. Its hull torn open by weapons fire. Minji pulled herself from the wreckage and looked up at an alien sky filled with burning ships around her. Human Marines were forming up, their weapons ready. The ruling council bunker is 2 kilometers north, her squad leader shouted over the noise of battle. We take it, and we end this war. They advanced through streets that had never seen. Enemy Butch Velorith defenders fell back before them, unable to comprehend that their sacred homeworld had been violated. Minji fought beside soldiers who had trained their whole lives for war. She was not their equal in skill, but she matched them in determination. Every trigger pull was for the friends she had lost at Kepler. Every step forward was for the children who would never grow up. The council bunker was a fortress of ancient stone and energy shields, but the shields were powered by the same technology that Dr. Chai had learned to defeat. Modified grenades collapsed the defensive barriers and human Marines poured inside. Minji was among the first. Through the breach, the Velorith guards fought with desperate ferocity, but they were few and the humans were many. Room by room, corridor by corridor, the Marines advanced until they reached the council chamber itself. High Sovereign Veloth Prime stood before his throne, surrounded by the last of his guards. He was ancient beyond human comprehension, his body sustained by technology that predated human civilization, and for the first time in his endless existence, he felt something he had never experienced. Fear. Admiral Shin's voice crackled over the communication system. The space battle was ending. The Velorith fleet had been shattered. High Sovereign, Shin's voice echoed through the chamber. Your forces are destroyed. Your defenses are broken. Surrender now and spare your people further suffering. The ancient ruler looked at the humans who had invaded his sanctuary. How? He demanded. How did you do this? You are children. Your species is barely a moment old. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Minji stepped forward, her weapon still raised. You killed 2 million of my people, she said quietly. You burned our cities and murdered our families because we refused to obey your command. She met the ancient creature's eyes without flinching. You expected us to surrender. You expected us to die quietly like all the others. But you do not understand humanity. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we never stop fighting. The High Sovereign was silent for a long moment. What do you want? He finally asked. Admiral Shin answered through the communication link. We want justice. We want guarantees that you will never threaten another civilization again. We want the galaxy to know that the Velorith can be defeated. He paused. We could destroy you. We have the power to end your species right now. But we are not like you. We did not come here for genocide. We came here to prove a point. And what point is that? That the age of Velorith tyranny is over. The surrender was negotiated over the following hours. The Velorith Empire was dismantled. Their fleets were reduced to a fraction of their former strength. Their conquered territories were returned to the species they had subjugated, and the coordinates of Velorith Prime were shared with every civilization in the galaxy. Let them come, Shin thought. Let them see what humanity accomplished. The United Earth Strike Fleet departed the Velorith system 3 days later. Of the 800 ships that had left human space, only 212 returned, but they returned victorious. They returned with proof that the ancient terror that had haunted the galaxy for millennia could be broken on the Corvus homeworld. The scarred elder wept when he received the news. For 2,000 years, his people had lived in shame. Now they were free. Ambassador Haiyan Wu Zhang addressed a gathering of alien dignitaries who had suddenly become very interested in friendship with humanity. We did not want this war, he told them. We wanted to live in peace among the stars, to explore and trade and grow alongside our galactic neighbors. He paused and looked around the chamber at beings who had dismissed humanity as doomed. Just months before, But when you threaten our homes, when you murder our children, when you try to extinguish our future, you will discover what we are truly capable of." He thought of Captain Rue and Minji, and all the others who had sacrificed everything. Not because we are stronger than you, not because our technology is superior, but because we refuse to give up. Because we would rather die fighting than live on our knees, on the scarred surface of Kepler 442b. A memorial was built, a simple stone wall listing every name of the 2 million who had died survivors, gathered there each year to remember, and above the memorial, carved in letters that would endure for centuries, was a single message. Here humanity learned the cost of freedom. Here humanity chose to fight. Here began the retribution that freed the galaxy. The warning had come to Earth, and humanity had answered not with fernet, with surrender, but with the fury of a species that would never be broken. The United Earthstrike Fleet departed on a cold morning in March. 800 warships rising from orbital stations across human space. Admiral Daeho Shin stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolution, watching as the last vessels fell into formation. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and they were flying into the unknown. The journey to Valorith space would take 32 days through regions of the galaxy that no human had ever explored. Commander Unipark managed communications from her station, coordinating the complex web of signals that kept the massive fleet moving as one unit. "All ships report ready for jump," she announced. Shin took a deep breath. "Begin the operation." The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving human territory behind somewhere ahead in the darkness. An ancient enemy waited. The first week passed without incident. The fleet traveled through empty space between stars, their sensors constantly scanning for threats. Dr. Su Yeon Chai spent her time in the science bay, running final tests on the modified weapons that would give humanity its only advantage against Valorith shields. "The modifications are holding stable," she reported to Shin during his daily briefing. "But I recommend we avoid using them until absolutely necessary. The Valorith must not have time to analyze and adapt to our new technology." Shin agreed. Their element of surprise was precious. They could not waste it on minor skirmishes, but the galaxy had other plans. On the 9th day, a Valorith patrol fleet intercepted them. 12 enemy vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in the fleet's path, their ancient weapons already charging. "All ships battle stations," Shin ordered calmly. "Standard weapons only. Do not reveal the modifications." The battle was brutal and costly. Human ships swarmed the Valorith patrol, using numbers and maneuverability to compensate for their technological disadvantage. Captain Taemin Ryu commanded the cruiser Defiance from the front of the assault. His ship took hit after hit, its hull buckling under the punishment. But Ryu refused to retreat. "Target their command vessel," he ordered his weapons officer. "Everything we have." The Defiance's guns blazed, pouring fire into the largest Valorith ship the enemy's shields held, but Ryu could see them flickering under the sustained assault. "Sir, our engines are failing," his engineer reported. "We cannot maintain combat speed." Ryu looked at his tactical display. The Valorith command ship was wounded, but still fighting. If it escaped, it would warn the homeworld of the approaching human fleet. "Navigation," Ryu said quietly. "Set collision course." His bridge crew went silent. They understood what he was asking. "Sir," his first officer began, "we can ram them or we can let them escape." Ryu cut him off. "Those are our choices. I choose to finish the mission." He opened a channel to the Resolution. "Admiral Shin, this is Captain Ryu. The Defiance is critically damaged, but I can take their command ship with me. Requesting permission to execute ramming maneuver." There was a moment of silence on the channel. "Permission granted, Captain." Shin's voice came back heavy with sorrow. "You will be remembered." Ryu smiled and looked around at his crew. Anyone who wants to reach the escape pods has my blessing. You have 2 minutes. No one moved. His weapons officer looked up at him with tears in her eyes. We started this journey together, sir. We will finish it together. Rue felt a lump form in his throat. Then let us show these ancient fools what humans are made of. The Defiance accelerated toward the Valorith command ship. Its damaged engines screaming with the effort enemy weapons fire tore into the cruiser, ripping away hull plating and destroying systems. But the ship kept coming in the final seconds. Rue opened a broadcast on all frequencies. My name is Captain Taemin Rue of the United Earth Defense Force. This is for Kepler. This is for the 2 million you murdered. This is humanity's answer to your warning. The Defiance struck the Valorith command ship at full speed. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. A brilliant flash of light that consumed both vessels when it faded. The Valorith command ship was gone. The remaining enemy vessels, suddenly leaderless, fell into confusion. Human fighters picked them off one by one until nothing remained. Fleet had won its first real victory against the Valorith. The cost was high. 37 human ships had been destroyed. Over 8,000 sailors would never see home again. Admiral Shin held a memorial service that evening, reading the names of every ship and every captain who had fallen. When he reached Captain Rue's name, his voice nearly broke. He showed us what we are capable of, Shin said to the assembled crews watching via video link. He showed the Valorith that we will never stop. We will never surrender. We will pursue them to the end of the universe if that is what it takes. He paused and composed himself. Let his sacrifice fuel our determination. We have 23 days remaining. We will honor his memory by completing our mission. The fleet continued its journey. More patrol fleets intercepted them as they pushed deeper into enemy territory. Each battle cost lives. But each battle also taught them something new about their enemy. Dr. Chai analyzed every engagement, noting patterns in Valorith tactics. They fight the same way every time, she told Shin after the third skirmish. Their formations are identical. Their attack patterns never change. They have not had to adapt in so long that they have forgotten how. Can we use that against them? Already working on it? Chai developed counter-tactics based on her observations. Strategies that exploited the rigid predictability of Valorith warfare. The human fleet began to win more decisively, losing fewer ships in each engagement, but the cumulative losses were mounting by the time they reached the border of Valorith space. The fleet had been reduced to 480 vessels. Nearly half their force was gone. Commander Park presented the casualty reports with a steady voice, but Shin could see the weight of each number in her eyes. 480 ships remaining, she said. Approximately 42,000 combat personnel. Shin studied the star map showing their final approach to the Valorith home system. It will have to be enough. Minji Quan, who had insisted on joining the expedition despite having no military training, entered the bridge. She had been serving as a morale officer, visiting ships throughout the fleet to share her story of survival at Kepler. The crew loved her. Her presence reminded them why they were fighting. Admiral, she said, the fleet is ready. I have spoken with sailors on every ship. They know what we are facing. They know many of us will not survive. She looked out the viewport at the stars ahead. They want to fight anyway. They want to be the ones who finally stood up to these monsters. They want their children to know that humanity did not go quietly into extinction. Shin nodded slowly. Then we will give them that chance. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the entire fleet. The connection established, and Shin's image appeared on screens across 480 warships in 12 hours. We will enter the Valorith home system, he began. No enemy has ever reached this place. For thousands of years, the Valorith have believed themselves untouchable. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with cold fire. We are about to prove them wrong. We have traveled across the galaxy. We have fought through their patrols. We have buried our friends in the void between stars. All of it led to this moment. He thought of Captain Rue and all the others who had given everything to bring them this far. The Valoroth sent a warning to Earth. They expected us to kneel. They expected us to beg. Instead, we built a fleet, and we came to find them. His voice hardened. This is our response. This is humanity's answer to their ultimatum. They wanted war. We are going to give them more than they ever imagined. He stood tall on his bridge. All ships prepare for final approach. In 12 hours, we bring retribution to the enemy's door. The channel closed and across the fleet. Humans prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of their species. 6 months after the massacre at Kepler 442b, the shipyards of Earth and its remaining colonies burned with activity around the clock. Admiral Daiho Shin stood on the observation deck of the Luna Orbital Facility, watching as massive warships took shape in the construction bays below. Workers moved in continuous shifts, never stopping, never resting. The entire human species had turned its energy toward a single purpose: revenge. Production is ahead of schedule, reported Captain Unipark, who had been promoted after her early warning of the Valoroth threat. We will have 600 combat-ready vessels within the month. Shin nodded slowly. And the new weapon systems. Dr. Chai says she needs another 2 weeks to finalize the modifications. Dr. Su-Yeon Chai had become one of the most important people in the war effort at Xenotechnology, researcher who had spent her career studying alien artifacts. She now led a team dedicated to finding weaknesses in Valoroth technology. The wreckage recovered from Kepler 442b had given them something to work with. The remains of the cruiser that the brave pilot had rammed contained fragments of Valoroth shielding technology. Chai and her team had been studying those fragments day and night. I need to see her, Shin said. Take me to her lab. The research facility was buried deep beneath the lunar surface, protected by layers of rock and reinforced steel. Dr. Chai met them at the entrance, her eyes red from lack of sleep, but bright with excitement. Admiral, your timing is perfect, she said. I have something to show you. She led them through corridors filled with humming equipment and busy technicians until they reached a sealed chamber at the heart of the facility. Inside, a captured piece of Valoroth hull plating was mounted on a testing platform. Watch carefully. Chai said she activated a console, and a standard human plasma cannon fired at the hull fragment. The energy beam struck the Valoroth metal and dissipated harmlessly, absorbed by an invisible barrier. That is their shield technology, Chai explained. It creates a field that neutralizes incoming energy by matching its frequency and canceling it out. It is elegant, and it is ancient, and it has protected them for thousands of years. She adjusted something on the console. But here is what we discovered. The cannon fired again. But this time, the beam looked different somehow, flickering with an irregular pattern when it struck the Valoroth hull. The shield flared bright and then collapsed. The beam punched through the metal, leaving a smoking hole. Shin stared at the damage with wide eyes. How? He breathed. Their shields are designed to counter predictable attack patterns, Chai explained. They expect energy weapons to fire in steady, consistent beams. So we modified our weapons to fire in chaotic, randomized pulses. The Valoroth shield cannot adapt fast enough to counter something it cannot predict. Can this be applied to our entire fleet? Already working on it. Chai smiled for the first time in months. We can have the modifications ready for all combat vessels before launch, while the military prepared for war. Ambassador Haiyan Wu Jiang traveled the galaxy searching for allies. It was a frustrating mission. Every species he approached gave the same answer. We cannot help you, the Mythrani ambassador told him. The Valoroth have existed since before our civilization began. They cannot be defeated. Humanity is already dead, a Fenari trader said bluntly. You simply do not know it yet. Go home and make peace with your gods, an Asari elder advised. There is nothing else to be done. Hyanwu refused to accept these answers. He kept searching, kept asking, kept hoping that somewhere in the vast galaxy there was someone willing to stand with humanity. Found that someone in the most unlikely place, the Corvus, lived on a single world at the edge of known space. Their civilization had never recovered from their own encounter with the Valorith 2,000 years ago. They had survived, but they had lost everything that made them great. Scarred Elder, who had warned humanity about the Valorith, agreed to meet with Hyanwu in secret. You come seeking warriors, the Elder said, his ancient voice crackling through the translator. But we have no warriors left. The Valorith took that from us. Then what can you offer? Hyanwu asked. The Elder was silent for a long moment. Information, he finally said. We have watched the Valorith for 2,000 years. We know where their fleets gather. We know the location of their homeworld. Hyanwu felt his heart skip a beat. You know where they live. No one has ever struck at the Valorith home system. The Elder continued. They believe themselves untouchable. Their defenses there will be minimal. They have never needed them. Why are you telling me this? The Elder leaned forward. And Hyanwu saw something burning in those ancient eyes. Something that had been buried for millennia. Because you are the first species to say no, the Elder whispered. You are the first to fight back. We cannot join your battle, but we can give you this gift. The location of the enemy that destroyed us. He transferred a data crystal to Hyanwu's device. Make them pay for what they did to us. Make them pay for what they did to you. Show the galaxy that the Valorith can bleed. Hyanwu brought the information. Back to Earth, Admiral Shin gathered his senior commanders in the war room to present his plan. For the past 6 months we have been building a fleet to defend our remaining worlds, he said. But defense is not enough. The Valorith will keep coming until we are extinct. He activated the holographic display showing the coordinates the Corvus had provided. This is the Valorith home system. No enemy has ever reached it in their entire history. The room was silent. We are not going to wait for them to attack us again. Shin continued. We are going to take the fight to them. We are going to show them that humanity does not cower and humanity does not forget. Commander Park spoke up. Sir, our fleet will be outnumbered and we will be operating far from any support. I know, Shin nodded. This is not a mission with high chances of success. This is a mission of retribution. I will not order anyone to join. I am asking for volunteers. He looked around the room at the faces of his officers. Who was willing to fly into the fire with me? One by one. Every officer in the room stood. We lost friends at Kepler, Commander Park said, her voice steady. We lost family. If there is even the smallest chance to make the Valorith answer for what they did, I will take it. Minji Quan, who have survived the massacre and now served as a civilian liaison to the military, was the last to speak. I stood in the ashes of my world, she said quietly. I watched millions die because an ancient empire decided we had no right to exist. She looked directly at Admiral Shin. I do not just want to fight them. I want them to understand what they woke up when they attacked us. I want them to fear us the way the galaxy fears them. Shin nodded slowly. Then we are agreed. He turned to the display showing the route to Valaris space. In 3 weeks, the United Earthstrike fleet will launch. 800 vessels carrying everything we have. We may not all survive this journey, but those who do will write a new chapter in galactic history. He paused and his voice dropped to something hard and cold. The Valorith sent us a warning. They expected us to obey. They expected us to die quietly. His fist came down on the table. We are going to teach them what humanity does to those who murder our children. We are going to make them remember this day for the rest of their existence. The preparations began immediately. In 3 weeks, the fleet would depart, and the galaxy would learn what happened when humans sought retribution. The transmission arrived at 3 in the morning. On a cold Tuesday in December, Commander Una Park sat alone in the monitoring station on Luna, watching the endless streams of data that flowed from deep space sensors scattered across human territory. She had worked this shift for 6 years and had grown used to the quiet hum of machines and the soft glow of screens in the darkness. Nothing ever happened on the night shift that changed when her console began to scream. The alarm cut through the silence like a knife, and Una nearly spilled her coffee as she lunged toward the main display. An encrypted signal was coming from beyond the edge of known space, from a region that no human probe had ever reached. The signal was strong and deliberate, and aimed directly at Earth. Una's hands trembled as she began the decryption process. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but she had never truly believed it would come. First contact with an unknown alien species was the dream of every communications officer in the United Earth Defense Force, but as the message slowly revealed itself on her screen, Una realized this was no dream. It was a nightmare. The message was written in 17 different languages, including 3 human tongues. Someone or something had studied humanity long enough to learn how to speak to them. The words were simple and cold: species designation human. You have expanded beyond your permitted boundaries. You have 7 solar rotations to withdraw all populations to your origin world. Failure to comply will result in correction. This is your only warning. Signed, the Valorith Dominion, Una read the message 3 times before she understood what she was seeing. This was not a greeting. This was not an offer of friendship or trade. This was an ultimatum from a civilization that expected to be obeyed. She picked up her communicator and called Admiral Daeho Shin, the commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. His voice was rough with sleep when he answered, but it sharpened quickly as Una read him the message. "Wake everyone," he said quietly. I mean everyone. Within 6 hours, the Terran Assembly had gathered in emergency session in the Great Hall beneath Geneva. Representatives from every nation and colony sat in tense silence as Admiral Shin presented the transmission. The holographic display showed the signal's origin point, a dark region of space that humans had never explored. "We have reached out to our allies," Ambassador Hayam Wu Jiang reported, his face pale under the harsh lights, "and the responses have been troubling. The Mithrani, humanity's closest trading partners, had sent a single-word reply: comply. The Asari, who had shared scientific knowledge with Earth for decades, had gone completely silent. Even the usually talkative Fenari had refused to comment. We managed to contact a Corvith elder," Hayam Wu continued, "and what he told us was disturbing. The Corvith were a reclusive species who rarely spoke to outsiders. Their representative, an ancient being covered in ceremonial scars, had agreed to share what he knew about the Valorith. They are old," the elder had said through the translator. "Older than any civilization we know. They do not conquer worlds. They correct species that displease them. 17 civilizations have received their warnings throughout galactic history. None of those civilizations exist today." A murmur of fear rippled through the assembly. Admiral Shin stood firm at the podium, his weathered face revealing nothing. "What happened to the Corvith?" someone asked. "We received our own warning 2,000 years ago," the elder had replied. "We complied. We abandoned our colonies and retreated to our homeworld. We survived, but we lost 90% of our population to the chaos that followed. We have never recovered. We will never recover." The weight of those words hung over the assembly like a funeral shroud. Minister Yunbai Han, the leader of the Terran Assembly, rose to speak. "We have 7 days to make a decision that will determine the future of our species," she said. "I will not pretend this is an easy choice." The debate that followed was fierce and desperate. Some argued for immediate compliance, retreat to Earth, abandon the colonies. Survive at any cost. Others pointed to the corvette's fate and asked, what kind of survival that would be? How many would die in the evacuation chaos? How many would lose everything they had built? And what would stop the Valorith from making new demands once humanity had shown weakness? Admiral Shin waited until the voices had grown hoarse before he stepped forward again. Let me tell you about our colonies, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. He activated the display and showed them images HFY-42B with its vast cities and farmlands that fed 3 million people. Proxima Station, where human children were born among the stars for the first time. New Seoul and New Lagos and New Mumbai. Places where humanity had planted seeds that were just beginning to grow. These are not just coordinates on a map, Shin continued. These are homes, these are families. These are generations of work and sacrifice the Valorith expect us to abandon. All of this because they sent us a message. He paused and looked around the room. I have served Earth my entire life, he said. I have always believed that our greatest strength is not our technology or our resources. It is our refusal to surrender when others tell us we cannot win. Minister Han nodded slowly. Admiral, what do you recommend? We send a response, Shin said. We tell them no. The assembly erupted in argument once more. Some called Shin a fool who would doom humanity. Others rose to their feet and cheered. The vote came at midnight, 7 days exactly before the Valorith deadline would expire. The decision was closer than anyone had expected. 53% voted to refuse the ultimatum, 37% voted to comply. It was enough. Minister Han authorized the transmission herself. The message was sent on every frequency humanity could reach, broadcast into the void toward that dark region of space where ancient eyes were watching. The message contained a single word in every human language. No Ambassador Hyun Woo Jing would later describe the moment as the most terrifying and most proud of his life. We had no idea if we could survive what was coming, he wrote in his memoirs years later. But we knew who we were. We knew what we stood for, and we refused to let fear make that decision for us. Commander Yuna Park remained at her station throughout the vote, watching her screens for any sign of response. For 3 days nothing happened. The galaxy held its breath. Then, on the 4th day, her sensors detected movement deep in that unexplored region of space. Something massive was awakening. Hundreds of ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, began to move toward human territory. The Valorith fleet had been dormant for 3 centuries. Humanity's refusal had woken them. Admiral Shin received the report in his office on Earth. He read the numbers carefully and then set down his tablet. So they come, he said to no one in particular. He stood and walked to his window, looking up at the night sky where somewhere in the darkness an ancient enemy was approaching. Let them come, he whispered. We will be ready. But even as he spoke those words, he knew the truth. Humanity was not ready. They had never faced anything like the Valorith, and the price of their defiance was about to come due. The Valorith fleet arrived at Kepler 442b on a bright summer morning, when the colony's children were walking to school. Colony Director Minji Kwan was reviewing agricultural reports in her office when the emergency sirens began to wail. She had hoped they would have more time. The evacuation orders had gone out 3 days earlier, but moving 3 million people off a planet was not something that could be done quickly. Transport ships had been arriving around the clock, filling their holds with frightened families and departing for safer systems, but there were never enough ships. There was never enough time. Minji ran to the command center where her staff was already scrambling at their stations. The main display showed the orbital view, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. The Valorith ships were enormous, each vessel stretched across kilometers of space, their hulls dark and ancient and covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. There were 47 of them hanging in the sky above the colony like patient predators. Any communication? Minji asked. Her communications officer shook his head. Nothing. They are not responding to any of our signals. What about the defense fleet? Lieutenant Beak has scrambled all available fighters. But Director, the officer paused and swallowed hard. We have 18 combat ships. They have 47 capital vessels. Minji closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of her daughter who had left on the first evacuation transport. She thought of the millions of people still on the surface who were counting on her to save them. Get everyone underground, she ordered. Activate all shelter protocols and tell Lieutenant Beak to buy us as much time as he can in orbit above the colony. Lieutenant Ji-hoon Beak was already leading his squadron toward the enemy fleet. He was 26 years old and had never seen real combat. None of his pilots had the Valorith. Ships grew larger in his view screen as he approached, and Ji-hoon felt a cold weight settling in his chest. All units, he said over the radio. Our mission is to delay and distract. We are not trying to win this fight. We are trying to give the ground teams time to get people to safety. Lieutenant, one of his pilots responded. Their weapons are charging. Ji-hoon saw it too along the hulls of the Valorith ships. Massive cannons were beginning to glow with an eerie blue light. They were not pointed at his fighters. They were pointed at the planet below. All units attack now, Ji-hoon shouted. We have to draw their attention. The 18 human fighters dove toward the enemy fleet like angry insects attacking giants. Their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, against vessels their own size, against the Valorith dreadnoughts. They might as well have been throwing stones, but they attacked anyway. Ji-hoon's missiles struck the hull of the nearest Valorith ship and exploded in bright flowers of fire. The damage was minimal. Of ship and exploded in bright flows of fire. The dam exploded in bright flowers of fire. The damage was minimal, barely scratching the ancient armor, but it was enough to make the Valorith notice. Several of the enemy cannons turned away from the planet and toward the human fighters. Ji-hoon watched 3 of his pilots die in the first volley. Their ships simply vanished, vaporized by weapons that made human technology look primitive. Keep moving, Ji-hoon ordered, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his heart. Make them chase us, make them waste time on the surface below. The bombardment began. The Valorith were thorough and methodical. They targeted population centers first, their massive energy beams carving through cities like burning fingers through paper. The Vor, capital city of New Bazan, was the first to fall. Over 800,000 people lived there in the span of 3 minutes. It ceased to exist. Minji watched the destruction from her command center, tears streaming down her face as she coordinated the desperate rush to the underground shelters. Director, the last evacuation transport is ready, her aide reported. There is still room for you. Minji shook her head. I am staying. Someone needs to manage the shelter systems. Someone needs to be here. Director, please. That is an order, Minji said quietly. Now go, get yourself on that transport. Your family is waiting for you. The aide hesitated for a moment, then nodded and ran in orbit. Ji-hoon's squadron had been reduced to 7 ships. They had managed to destroy 1 Valorith fighter, a small escort vessel that had gotten careless. It was a tiny victory in the face of overwhelming defeat. Lieutenant, his wingman called out. My engines are damaged. I cannot maintain speed. Ji-hoon looked at his tactical displays. The damaged fighter was falling behind, and a Valorith cruiser was moving to intercept. Eject, Ji-hoon ordered. We will come back for you. Negative, Lieutenant. The cruiser is between me and the escape vector. If I eject, they will kill me anyway. There was a pause on the radio. I'm going to ram them, the pilot said. Tell my mother I love her. Ji-hoon watched helplessly as the damaged fighter accelerated toward the Valorith cruiser. The small human ship struck the enemy vessel at full speed, punching through its shields and detonating against its hull. The cruiser shuddered and began to list. Secondary explosions rippling across its surface. He heard them. Someone whispered over the radio. He actually heard them. The bombardment lasted for 4 hours when it was over. The surface of Kepler 442b was scarred with massive craters. Where cities had once stood, forests that had taken decades to cultivate were reduced to ash, rivers boiled, and mountains crumbled. Under the relentless assault, the Valoroth did not land troops. They did not attempt to occupy the planet. They simply destroyed everything they could see and then departed as silently as they had arrived. 2,300,000 humans died that day, but 400,000 survived in the deep shelters that Minji and her team had fought so desperately. The full Valoroth had expected total annihilation. They had never encountered a species that built bunkers so deep or fought so hard to protect its people. Minji emerged from the command bunker 3 days later. Stepping out into a world of ash and silence, she looked up at the empty sky where the enemy had been. "You think this breaks us?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from days of coordinating rescue efforts. "You think this makes us afraid?" She picked up a handful of the gray ash that covered everything and let it fall through her fingers. "You have no idea what you have done across the galaxy." Other species watched the news feeds from Kepler 442b with grim acceptance. This was how it always happened, the Valoroth warned. And then the Valoroth destroyed. No one fought back. No one ever won. In his office on Earth, Admiral Shin watched the same footage. He saw the burning cities, and the desperate evacuation ships, and the brave pilots who died trying to buy time for strangers. His hands were clenched so tight that his knuckles had turned white. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "the assembly is asking for your response." Shin was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and hard as iron. "Begin full military mobilization," he said. "Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have. We are going to build a fleet. And we are going to find these monsters. And we are going to teach them what happens when you murder human children." The aide nodded and hurried away. Shin turned back to the footage. Watching it play again and again, he memorized the faces of the dead. He would not forget them, and neither would humanity.